Should attend and vote in association meetings. This is your opportunity to have a voice in the association. It's your way of putting people in place who you think are going to do the best for the association, who are going to work hard, who are going to pay attention to the owner's needs and make sure that things are done properly. So instead of going to a meeting and voting, for someone because they're your buddy, take a look at the candidates and see who is going to work in the best interest of the association. Owners should ensure that their tenants are provided with copies of the governing documents so that they can comply with the requirements. Again, this is something that owners are responsible for. If you're going to put a tenant into your unit, you are responsible for what your tenant does. So if your tenant is violating the project documents and the rules, that's your responsibility. If violations are issued and fines are issued, that's ultimately your responsibility. You can try and pass it on to your tenant, but the collection is going to come from you. It's on your unit. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that your tenants understand what they can and cannot do on the property. Going into board's rights. Now, a lot of the board's rights are kind of the flip side of the owner's rights. But, so again, the directors have the right to expect owners and residents to know and comply with the association's governing documents. So when you're sending out violation letters, you can expect that the owners know the rules and that they should have been complying with them. The excuse that I didn't know is really, it's not relevant. It's not something that you can rely on to get you out of a violation, and the board can expect that. Directors have the right to expect owners to meet their financial obligations. Again, this is a business and you need to have your income in order to pay your expenses. Directors have the right to be treated fairly and with respect. That goes without saying. Again, owners should realize that you are volunteers and spending a lot of your free time working for them. Okay. Directors have the right to expect support and constructive input from owners and residents. If you're an owner and you see things that are wrong with your property, instead of complaining about it or ignoring it, bring it to the attention of your board so that they may not know that these things are happening, or they may not know that this condition exists. So you want to give them the opportunity to address it before you start complaining to all of your friends. Look at the condition, they're not paying attention, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. They're not everywhere on the property. So if you see something you think is a concern, bring it to your board. Okay. Directors have the right to their privacy at their home. Very important. They live on the property, they're your neighbors. Don't show up at their house at 2 o'clock in the morning because you have an issue with someone down the road whose dog is barking. They have a right to their privacy, and they have a right not to be disturbed outside of board meetings and other activities that the board engages in. Directors have the right, to take advantage of educational opportunities to better serve the association, and the association budget should contain those educational activity expenses as a separate item. Today, for example, this is free, so you get benefit of having a free educational seminar. But there are also other seminars available. Milton mentioned that most of us up here are members of the CAI Board of Directors. We sponsor educational seminars along with the REC 6 times a year. So those are things that you may want to take advantage of, because we cover a lot of topics that are relevant to boards, to owners, and just condominium associations and other homeowner associations in general. Okay. Board duties. Boards are tasked with running the association. They are often vested with combined powers of executive, legislative, and judiciary branches of the government. Keep that in mind and wield your power carefully and wisely. You have to be aware that you're sending out the violations, but you're also the appeal process. So you want to handle it in a way that the owners will feel that they have been heard and that their concerns have been addressed, and they're being considered and not just brushed off to the side. Okay. Directors owe fiduciary duty to the association. This is a statutory requirement, but the statute doesn't define what fiduciary duty means. Essentially, the directors must act in good faith and put the interests of the owners ahead of their own. If you have a beef with one of the owners, it's not your place to take it out on them anytime you have the situation calls for it. So you want to do what's in the best interest of the association always. You don't want to do things that are going to benefit you specifically only, or take your conflict situation out on them if they're making a request to the association. For example, we had one community association that an owner was asking to put some plants in her yard. These were approved plants. They were in the architectural guidelines. And she already had some of them in her yard, but she wanted to place a few more because she wanted to stop people from parking on her grass. And the board came back and said, well, we want to tell her no, but we want to make sure that we're not going to get in trouble for that. So I asked them, okay, what's your reason for telling her no? Because she already has a bunch of these plants there. And they said, well, there's an electrical easement in that area. So I said, okay, that's a reasonable reason. Are there any other homes in the area that have electrical easements that have been covered? Oh, yeah, there's a house down the street that put a concrete pad over it so that they could park their cars. Said, okay, so you're saying that you're allowing one owner to put a concrete pad over the electrical easement, but you're not going to let her plant 7 plants over it. They said, yeah. I said, why? They said, well, she's a real pain. I mean, she really annoys us, comes to meetings and complains all the time. And I'm going, okay, no. You can't do this. You're going to get sued. So that's selective enforcement. So you want to do what's right for everybody. Be fair to everybody. Apply the rules to everyone equally. You don't want to take it out on people just because they harass you or they're a pain and they're very vocal about their complaints. So keep that in mind. Okay, you don't want to be sued for selective enforcement, and Sue can tell you that as well. Follow the business judgment rule when you're making decisions. You don't have to make the right decision all the time, but you want to make sure that the way that you made that decision is correct. You want to act in good faith. You want to act in a manner that you believe is in the best interest of the association. And you want to do what a person in a similar situation would do. Conduct open meetings and encourage owner participation. Again, that goes back to the meeting rules and how owners can participate. Directors should provide records that the owners are entitled to review, and we've gone over that a lot. Directors should adopt reasonable financial controls. Should, whenever possible, solicit multiple bids. Sometimes you can't get. I've had associations come in and say, look, we put out 5 requests for bids to different companies. We got 2 in. Is that enough? You've done your due diligence. You've gone out, but you want to document that you did this. You sent out requests for bids, and this is all you've got. Okay. Directors through the board must collect adequate reserves, and JB is going to be talking about reserves in a little bit. Directors should invest association funds pursuant to requirements set forth in the statute. Directors should check on the insurance companies submitting bids to make sure they are highly rated, and Sue can tell you this. You don't want to go with the cheapest option. The cheapest option will not always give you the coverage that you need and that you want. If something should happen and your association needs to do a lot of repairs or, Marco Polo, you want to make sure that you've got the kind of insurance that will help you to rebuild your project after a tragedy happens. Directors should check on insurance companies to make sure that their bids are, again, highly rated, and directors should disclose any conflicts of interest, not vote on issues in which they have a conflict of interest. So if these rules, these rights and obligations, and these duties are followed, if people read their project documents, know what they are, have to comply with, a lot of your conflicts can be avoided. It can save your association a lot of time and money defending lawsuits and claims, and it can make your project a lot nicer place to live in. Thank you.